Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Popular Decks. I'm your host, Michael, and I'm here today with this Rakdos mid-range deck. Before I get started, I just want to remind you guys, leave me any comments you have for me in the comment section down below, and let me know any way I can improve my content. I'm always looking for helpful advice on that. Um, I apologize in advance. I'm using a new microphone today. I've been having some issues with my other one, which is why I didn't get a video out to you guys on Friday, but hopefully I should be able to have some content each day going forward. And I'm doing a kind of a bonus one on the weekend here today, so you should still get the same number of videos, but all my videos were ruined on Friday. I did 2 leagues for you guys, and they were both ruined, so uh, hopefully this new microphone works a little better for me. I know it sounds a little different, so if you guys have any comments on that, let me know. All right. Remember to follow me on Twitter and to subscribe to me on YouTube if you want to see my content every time it goes out. I will be streaming hopefully a few times this week and also releasing videos each day. So I always post on Twitter when I'm going to be doing that. And then I also, if you subscribe to me on YouTube, it'll tell me when I release new videos. So onto the deck. This is kind of my take on the Rakdos kind of mid-range deck stuff. It's really good if you're expecting to play against a lot of Stompy and other creature decks. So Stompy has been the most popular deck recently, although the last few days I haven't played against it a ton, so it might be time to move on to something different. But I really want to show you guys this deck. It's one of my favorite decks to play. It's super fun. So the reason we're so good against Stompy is we are just absolutely full of removal spells. So we've got 11 1-mana red removal spells, and then I've got another 6 2-mana removal spells that are black, and they deal with a little more stuff than just the small things. So we've got this huge stack of removal spells, which makes us great against all of the Stompy decks. Red deck wins, elves, that kind of thing. They just can't keep up with all the removal that we have. It's just too efficient. And then we've got some card advantage spells. So I've got 4 copies of Night's Whisper. I used to be playing 3, and I moved it up to 4 because I've been seeing more mid-range and control decks. So I definitely want more Night's Whispers. I've got 4 Thermo Alchemists, so this is one of the worst cards in the deck, but it gives us a really fast clock, so I think that 4 of them is still really important. They do block a little bit against Stompy. You can usually force them to use a pump spell to get through it, and then sometimes you can usually blow them out with Lightning Bolt or Magma Spray or something like that. Other card advantage spells, we've got Phyrexian Rager and Chittering Rats. They're both kind of 2-for-1s. I moved down to 3 Chittering Rats and up to 4 Ragers. I felt that I wanted to hit more lands later in the game, and I really wanted to make sure that I just kept my gas going, and Chittering Rats isn't card advantage if they don't have any cards in hand. So if they're empty-handed, Chittering Rats just a 2/2 for 3, and that's pretty terrible. It's still a great card. I would consider going back up to 4, but right now I'm on 3 of those. I recently went down to only 2 copies of Thorn of the Black Rose, so this is kind of the new kid on the block. It's a really awesome card. It's super fun. So for those of you who don't know what the Monarch is, when Thorn of the Black Rose comes into play, you become the Monarch, and that means at the end of your turn, you draw an extra card. Whoever is the Monarch draws a card at the end of each turn, each of their turns, and you lose the Monarch by getting dealt combat damage. So if your opponent deals you combat damage, they take the Monarch away from you. That's pretty disastrous for this deck because we don't have tons and tons of creatures that can attack. They're actually all right here, nothing cheaper than this. So there just aren't that many. It's kind of tough for us to get it back, but ideally we have so much removal that our opponent can never take it from us in the first place. Um, this is kind of our answer to the the control decks of the format. They have a lot of trouble getting creatures through. So I would cut down to only 2 of these rather than 3. I've been playing against blue-red fairies like every single round, basically. I did a league on when I did one of my leagues on Friday. I played 4 matches against blue-red fairies, and blue-red fairies is a pretty good matchup for this deck, but at the same time, I don't want extra cards that are really bad against that deck, so cut down to 2 of those. I've got 2 Beetleback Chiefs, so these are really good against removal heavy decks. It takes them 3 removal spells to kill all of them. It's great against, they're great for chump blocks. They can block Stompy really well. It's just a strong card. Then finally got 2 Grimag Anglers. They're really good against the red decks. Their removal can't kill it with just 1 piece of removal, takes 2 cards, and it's just an efficient threat. I mean, I use a lot of removal spells early, and then I can Gurmag them all away. As far as the mana base goes, nothing too interesting here. I've got one Bojuka Bog, and then one of each cycling land. And then I've got two Radiant Fountains. Burn is one of our worst matchups, so we really need to get a Radiant Fountain down and then pick it up and play it again in order to get there in time. We're really a deck that can only win by about turn 6 normally, turn 5 at the very earliest if we have a really fast Thermo Alchemist draw. But realistically, we can't kill before that. And burn, I would say Goldfish is about a turn 5 most of the time. So you need to kill them before then, or you need to gain enough life that you're just out of reach. So as far as the sideboard goes, I've been tweaking it a little bit based on kind of what I've been running into. So my newest addition is this Reaping the Graves. It's a great card against all of the really heavy removal spell decks and counter spell decks because they kill or counter 2, 3 of your creatures, and then you can get 3 of them back. And they can't even really counter this. Since it has Storm, they can only copy each Storm copy, so it's going to cost them 2, 3, 4 counter spells sometimes to counter all these if they even can. The problem with adding this Reaping the Graves, it dropped me down to 2 duress, but I've been liking some duresses, but drawing the second duress is often pretty bad, and I definitely would want the extra Pyroblast before the duress. So that's what I've done. I've gone to 4 Pyroblast, pretty standard for a red deck, and then I've got 3 Electrickery, another pretty standard spell. So one of the issues I've been running into this deck is when I run into token decks, all of their token makers and stuff are 2-for-1s, especially something like Battle Screech ends up being a 4-for-1. I've got one Echoing Decay in the main deck, but that's it for dealing with big swaths of tokens. So that's what I've got here. Right now I've got 2 copies of Smash to Smithereens I'm trying out. I recently sold my Gorilla Shamans since I think they're going to drop in price, so I don't have any Gorilla Shamans at this point. And for those of you who are watching this, you can see that Gorilla Shaman has gone down about 3 tickets so far in the last week or so, simply because they added frequency to the treasure chest a lot. So I think we're going to see a drop in Gorilla Shamans, which means I put these in my deck. There's some other options. Sometimes I really like Echoing Rune, but I have to kill quickly against the affinity decks simply because when you play against affinity, they always have the out to hold ATOG and fling in their hand until they can kill you exactly, and so we want to kill them a little faster. And then finally I got 2 Blightnings. It's great against it's great against burn actually. It's really good against any of the decks that rely heavily on card advantage, and then also decks that are really tight on cards like burn. So Blightning is often deal 3 damage and gain 6 life against burn. So that's why I've got those in the deck right now. That's pretty much it for the cards in the deck. As far as matchups go, I already talked about some of them. I think we have a pretty good blue-red fairies matchup. I think I'm like 6-2 against them or something like that. I've timed them out a couple times, so it's not necessarily accurate about how the matchup goes, but I've had pretty good luck against them. I've done pretty well against blue-black. I think that's about a 50-50 matchup. I think our regular Delver matchup is great. Our Stompy matchup is great. The Red Deck Wins matchup is great. Just like all these mid-range decks, our Tron matchup is pretty bad. And you can see I didn't bother to put any land destruction in the sideboard. It's just not worth it. Pyroblast is about the Pyroblast and Duress are kind of the extent of what I'm going to bring in against them. And if that's not enough, it's not enough. But I'm not spending sideboard slots on a matchup that's still going to be bad even after I have all my sideboard cards. I haven't played against Blue-Black Teachings or anything like that. It's not a very popular deck. I would imagine the Reaping the Graves would be really helpful against that matchup. And then we have a pretty good matchup against Boggles. I've got these 3 Electrickers and 3 Edicts, and a couple times I've seen a lot of them playing that white cartouche, and the token has never ever mattered even once because I've got tons and tons of spot removal for it, so we just take it out. They can get a really great draw, like if they get like a Boggle into a cartouche on turn 2, and then they play another Boggle plus like a big thing, like an Ethereal Armor, and then we can get in trouble simply because they've got like a hexproof threat that I have to edict away before I can even edict away the first one, but it hasn't been too much of a problem. What other matchups are there that are popular? I guess those are mostly the matches we've been running into. Oh, Elves. Elves is super easy. We've got Electrickery, tons of spot removal. Elves has been no problem. So the bad matchups for this deck are Burn and Tron. Burn has a little faster clock than we can deal with, and we don't have a ton of interaction with them. And then Tron gets so big that we can't really keep up. And then the good matchups are the creature decks, and then the other matchups are pretty even. You can kind of tweak your deck in order to improve your matchups in the mid range and control matchups, but overall, I would say that they're pretty even depending on your build. That's about it for this. So let's go get to some games.